Hey everyone, Ron Bainberg here with another edition of the Ron Bainberg podcast. And I am super excited about our special guest today. And it is Mike Hardy from Churchill Mortgage. And he is a managing partner of their Southwest uh, area district. And Mike, I think you mentioned mostly California. So, Mike, welcome to the Ron Bainberg podcast. Thanks for being here.
Awesome, Ron. It's great to be here. I look forward to our conversation and thank you for having me.
You got it. Well, Mike, I know you've been around the mortgage space for 20 plus years, and you are, very, very entrenched with the leadership of Churchill and focusing on, what happens in the next 90 days, what happens 6 months, 12 months, and just, getting beyond just the day to day, but also creating a vision for, those that are all working in this wonderful industry of mortgages, which can certainly be challenging. And so I just, wanted to start off with, and as I had mentioned to you, this is, what we do here is just conversations. And that is, we had a conversation about a month and a half, 2 months ago, just getting to know each other for the first time. Great conversation. And what really clicked with me in our conversation was okay, we're both in the coaching space, definitely doing things differently, but bottom line is we're both committed to helping individuals be better, be it originators, be it leaders. But rather than talking about the typical blocking and tackling, which is what so many people talk about on these podcasts, we had talked about a lot of what goes on up here, a lot of the things about psychology, how you start your day, how you get other people to start their day, getting in the right mindset because things are challenging and mindset is a big challenge right now for a lot of people. So, what do you do? What do you do?
Yeah, so I am a I'm a believer that we have one life to live. I don't want anything short of what I would call like God's A plus plan for my life. And in order to do
Like,
that, I have to approach the day and the week in my business and my personal life with the highest level of intention. And so, in terms of like winning the day, I believe that like the first hour, the morning is like that's the rudder of the day. And so we have a saying here called "mornings matter." And so when I look at getting the day started, it actually starts the day before, and it actually starts on the weekend for me. So every Sunday, I go through an exercise called the General's Tent. And that General's Tent exercise takes me about 45 minutes, but it is really a way of looking at the past week to see what are the lessons learned, where did I win, where did I fall short, where who do I need to forgive? Who do I need to ask for forgiveness from? It's like looking at the inside and the outside. And the concept actually stems from the book by Sun Tzu, The Art of War, where there's an excerpt in there where it says the battle is won in the general's tent long before the battle is joined. Okay, and it's like that's where the micro course corrections are made. And so what I found for me is like I'm very driven and have an addictive personality. So if I'm not careful, I can find myself 3 months later or a year later on the wrong path very passionately. And so that's the reason that once a week I'll take time to reflect. And I think a lot of people like work hard, but they don't think hard. And thinking is very different than working. And so it kind of starts for me on Sundays. I'll usually go to church in the morning with the family, and then I'll take some personal time in the afternoon to just think and reflect. So that's a weekly non-negotiable for me. And then each day, I do something called the Core Four. And the Core Four is a process of every single day doing something physically, mentally, and spiritually, relationally, and then on the business side. And it's called body, being, balance, and business. And that's my daily routine. And so body, being, balance, and business, and that weaponizes me for the day. And so I attack the day weaponized, body, mind, and spirit. And I can go through the core four, but really that's my way of protecting me from me.
wow. Just with what you said, I've got a ton of questions, but I'm going to try to keep it to a few. The first, um, let me talk about the core four. Can you give some examples? You said what the core four are. Do you mind sharing just a couple of examples of what are the things or some of the things that you'll do in each category?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just kind of work through each of them. The body side, like the thinking is that we've got one body to carry us through roughly 80 to 100 years. And so it makes no sense to me that we would ever neglect that and not maintain it and invest in it. And so what is the investment process physically? So every day I do some kind of exercise physically. Okay. And usually it's well, I just finished like that 75 hard program. And so that's pretty aggressive, right? That's 2 workouts a day, all kinds of things. But the point is like it doesn't have to be extreme. I have something called the 1% rule. The 1% rule means 1% of our day, if you break it down, is only 15 minutes. Like it's actually 14 minutes and about like 30 seconds roughly. If you break down the day, 24 hours, 1% is about 15 minutes. So my thought process is how can I not take 1% of my day to fine tune this vehicle, this body that's going to have to last me 100 years, which involves everything and to be able to be, I guess, weaponized. And so every day it's like a little bit of exercise. Sometimes I do extreme things, but at least a little bit of exercise, like 15 minutes. And then I'll take the time to get like I have a green drink every morning just to make sure I've got like the proper nutrition in there. Right. And so that's the body side. And it can be more than that, but that's my bare minimum. That's body. Okay. Next is being. Being is winning the inner game. And the inner game is really it's like the mental and spiritual side. And so on the being, what do? I take a few minutes of prayer time each day, and that's talking to God. That's different than listening. I take a few minutes, actually 10 minutes, to sit in silence and go through like the box breathing, which is something like the Navy SEALs do in order to like, reduce stress. So I'll go through box breathing and just sit in silence and listen. And sometimes, like, I get my best business ideas hands down sitting in silence for 10 minutes a day going through box breathing. And I'll sit there and I'll keep my journal handy. And if something comes to mind, I'll just, kind of write some quick notes on it and go through and reflect on that later. Right.
Smiling because my best ideas come in two different places. One is in the shower, and the other one is I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's right in front of my face.
Right. So it's like I'm looking for that state of flow, but I can't get in
Yep.
a state of flow unless there's a certain environment physically, right? And and in the shower, it's actually like biochemical. I think it's serotonin that flows more than normal, like in a shower setting, because it's like
You're right.
being at peace. And so, but the
Mhm.
same thing happens during like that, call it meditation time, right? And
Yep.
it's like and so all of a sudden, there's there's a capacity to see things I would never see if I didn't take the time to be quiet and listen, right? And go through that box breathing. Physiologically, it starts to change things. So that's the being side. Okay. Next is the balance side, and that's relational. And so for me, my rule is every single day I need to do something thoughtful for my wife and my kids. And it doesn't have to be huge, it could be small, right? So it's like maybe it's a thoughtful text. And usually like if I go hiking in my morning, I'll send a little quick video message. I've got 4 kids. I'll send a video message to one of my kids telling them just whatever it is I appreciate them or I believe in them or just some kind of encouragement. And so that's my way of like making daily deposits into my loved ones, my wife and my kids, so that there's always that to make sure that that connection is there and then deepening. So that's the being side or the balance side. And then the last one is
Love that.
business. And business is really simple. It is every single day, I'm going to take a few minutes to study my craft. And then I'm going to teach what I learned to somebody else. Okay. It's called discover and declare. And so every day, learn something new. And I have this whole, lots of things that I read that are related to my industry. Probably a lot of us in the mortgage business are reading the same things. But the other thing I do is I teach it because I want to anchor the lesson in my own life. And then if I teach it publicly, over time, you end up becoming a thought leader by being public facing and bringing good content. So body, being, balanced business, that's my daily routine.
I love that. Um, I don't know what anybody else is taking away from this, but I'm getting a bunch of ideas right now, things that I can improve as well. And I'm always looking to improve and reading and what have you. But you definitely gave me some ideas. I want to go back to your general's tent for a minute.
Hmm.
So, can you give us some some more specific questions that you ask when you're in the tent.
Yeah, absolutely.
You talk
I happen to have
30,000 as far as you review this or whatever, but what are some of those specific questions that people could say, "Wow, I need to ask this?"
Okay, so I'll go through this. This is my process. So in fact, I'll just sort of read a little bit of the start. The battle is won in the general's tent long before the battle is joined. Strategy without tactics is the slow course to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Beliefs, values, principles, strategies, tactics. And it's where the great decisions are made after evaluating, take inventory, confirm long term direction, and make micro course corrections. Okay, so that's the preface. So here's the questions. I'll just roll through some of them. If I was advising Mike Hardy to think bigger and go big, what would I tell him? We have one life to live. And so what I'll do is I'll think about who, if it was me in the future advising me today, or a lot of times what I'll do is there's certain people that I really respect in life, and I'll think, okay, what would Jim say to me right now? Like, or what, just I'll pick different people. What would they say to me right now about this situation or what I should be doing? And it gets me out of my own head. Okay. So, number one, if I was advising Mike Hardy to think bigger and go big, what would I tell him? Number two, I am a human being, not a human doing. What do I need to automate, delegate, or eliminate from my life? So every
Love that.
week I'm looking at because there's things that just like bog me down, right? What do I need to automate? What do I need to delegate? What do I need to eliminate? If I'm going to elevate, I have to automate, delegate, and eliminate. So then I'll go through and I'll just start writing things out. And I have this laundry list of things that come to mind that I just need to move off my plate, right? And I don't know how, but I'm going to figure out. And oftentimes it's not it's who can help solve that problem because we're also trained to think how I solve that problem. I mean, you think about how does Elon Musk run like, 4 companies? He's not doing everything. He's the
Yeah.
visionary and he figures out excellent people that he can partner with or align with or hire whatever it is to handle things. So it's like that same line of thinking.
That's actually one of the biggest breakthroughs I ever had in my own business when I started asking the question, who do I need to get to do this? And granted, I run a training company, not a mortgage company, and my whole company is built with no employees, but all virtual awesome people. And all I did is I used to do everything, and I just started asking a question. I'm like, okay, well, what is the highest and best use of my time? Which is one of the things that I coach everybody. What is the highest and best use of your time, whether it's personal or business? And then when you're engaged in activities that are not the highest and best use of your time, if you can't afford to pay for it yet, you make that part of your goal. You make that part of your strategy or plan to get someone to do that. Otherwise, you can never get it off your plate. And you know, people will ask me and they'll say, so how many people do you have? And I'm like, well, it's really, I just have experts. I have experts in social media. I have experts that manage my database. I have Maria, who's my assistant, who's an expert in kind of in graphic design and PowerPoints and those things. And the list goes on and on. I have an expert bookkeeper, and you can always find somebody to do these things for you when you start asking the right questions about how do I get this off my plate or this series that you're talking about here. So I love what you're saying.
Thank you. So I'll take a zero-based thinking approach, which is if life depended on me solving a particular issue, how would I do it? And then just get all that out on paper and decide afterwards if it's smart or healthy rather than having it get stuck up here and maybe shortchanging potential ideas. Like give it room to breathe and see if there's a solution there. So yeah, so then I'll go through and I'll say, what are my big rocks for the week? And the big rocks for me are with Churchill Mortgage. What do I need to do to move our group forward to a healthy place? And it's the things that are urgent, or excuse me, important but not urgent. Okay, the important things. What are those things in my personal life that are big rocks? And then I'm an investor as well on the growing money side, right? So it's like I think there's a distinction between making money, keeping money, and growing money are very different like mindsets and skill sets and
Yeah.
disciplines. And so one of them is on the investment side, taking time each week. How and where do I need to adjust my investments and investment strategy to maximize the growth over time? So that's one of the questions. And then, yep,
Before you go any further, you just talked about, making money, growing money. What was the third one?
yeah, making money, and growing money.
Keeping money, making money, keeping money, growing money. And I'd love you to talk. We have originators, we have company owners, we have leaders that listen to this podcast. And that's something I'm not going to let you just skate over that. That's too
Okay.
important.
Yeah.
For the simple fact, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, this is unscripted. I'm not letting you, Mike, I'm not letting you skate over that
All right.
because I know so many of us struggle with, if when you break it down into those 3 points, when we're in our day-to-day business, especially right now in a challenging market where many people are just in a survival mode. So, how would you coach somebody through that?
All right. That's a lot right there. So there's I like to control the controllables. What do I have immediate control over? And so kind of the way I map my time is that I think there's three different buckets. There's things that I have direct control over, things that I have meaningful influence over, and then things that I have no control or no influence over. Okay. And so it's like, what do I have control over? I have control over certain things in terms of the making money side in the future, and I have influence over things that can adjust that trajectory over time. Okay. Keeping money, those are habits. And a lot of times, like, one of the challenges I think in the mortgage banking space is, kind of a lack of discipline when it comes to spending. A lot of people they have these seasons of making a whole lot of money and then lifestyle grows with it. It course corrects and then it takes time to adjust lifestyle, right? Because behaviors are embedded. And so a lot of it in my mind is just getting really clear on what the healthy behaviors are and what the strategy is for for just healthy budgeting, right? And it's like, what are the fixed expenses and then what are the variables, whether it's running a company or whether it's running your personal family household. So it's just those are things that require thinking and intention by each person. And what I've found is if you don't focus on bettering your skill set, you end up limiting your ability to improve on the making money side. If you don't spend time on getting really clear on how to manage the basics of a budget and a household and just be efficient there, and not, like I have all kinds of things. So I do this sometimes. I'll see things that I want on Amazon or wherever it is, and I go and I put it in the shopping cart, but I don't buy it. I won't buy it till like the end of the week, and then more than half the things in there, it's like, you know what? I really need that ring light for my house, so I'm not bringing it back and forth, right? I'm going to buy the ring light, for 20 bucks, whatever it is, right? And it's like, but this other thing, why did I put that there? I don't even want it. So the point is like, it's just a way of protecting me from me on spending, and that's like a silly little example, but it's just like
No,
it's a process.
it's a
Um,
very accurate example. Yep.
the growing money side is different, and I was fortunate early in my formal training before getting into the mortgage banking space was as a financial advisor. So I did that for a couple of years and went through all of the CFP courses, and that was just my background and training. So, but if I think about this logically, here's what's kind of bizarre to me. Let's just say somebody has $1 million that they're able to invest, okay, and they are passive about the strategy and say, let's just invest it in the market, and they end up with a 7.2% rate of return. Over the course of 10 years, rule of 72, their money doubles. They turn $1 million into $2 million over 10 years. Okay. Here's what's fascinating to me. If someone can earn 11.6%, just under 12, their money triples instead of doubles. If someone can earn 15% rate of return, their money is 4x instead of double. Okay. And so I share that for context because the difference, and that's why I spend a good amount of my time thinking through and looking at how to, with very managed risk, get better returns, because that can be the difference of my money doubling or being 4x over a 10-year window. Okay. So, how long does it take an individual to save? Well, it's going to be very relative to the money they make and then their habits for what they quote keep. But then
Yep.
there's this other side, which is, and I'm not talking about, being just silly with risk, but that's my reason for taking some time each week to really look at my investment strategies over time. Because with the power of compounding, if done well, that
Yeah.
can mean a $4 million exit instead of a $2 million exit, all things equal. So that's where my mind goes with making money, keeping money, and growing money.
Very, 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 very powerful. And if someone's not a financial advisor, and look, anybody can go and get a financial advisor. You have a level of knowledge that most of us do not when it comes to investing or what have you. Not that this is an investing podcast or an investing course in any way, shape, or form, but you brought us there. So, if the one question I would ask you is, there, like I said, there's no shortage of everybody touting, here's a system. What what would where would you tell someone to go would be the best way for them to really learn to do this evaluation and make competent decisions? We know the market's not a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee. But if someone wanted to learn those skills, how would you guide them?
Sure. It first my personal opinion is that it should be in an area that you love. Okay. And I think that one of the beauties of this country is that there's opportunities everywhere for people that are willing to be diligent and consistent in a particular area. Okay. So my first belief is that your best investment is always in yourself. Okay, yourself, is how do I upgrade my mindset and my skill set to see the world in a way that I did not see before? Because part of it is you can't grow and you can't earn beyond your own capacity as an individual. Like almost think of it like if I've got this Starbucks, my cold brew right here, what is this? Like 8 ounces or 12 ounces. Okay. And this is a capacity. And I think one of the things that's one of the disciplines for like sort of the daily learning in a particular area is over time the capacity grows. And so instead of having a 12-ounce capacity, at some point in the future, that next thing it's a 5 gallon drum, and then it's the size of the swimming pool. And so a lot of it has to do with capacity. So I want to preface it by saying that. That's number one. Number two, the how do I say this? The I think that our where your passion is, there's also, if you figure out how to deliver value to the world in an area that you're passionate about, money will follow you. Okay. And so that's very different for everybody. But I think that there's for some reason, like this, our system trains so many people just to go be good employees. And that's fantastic, for security, but there's a big difference between like security and, and then let's call it prosperity or abundance and prosperity, right? And legacy. So, how does someone start? Because that's kind of what you're asking me. Like, here's what I think. Number one is get clear on what it is that you love and where you bring value to the world. Okay, where do you bring value? And my theory and my thinking is that like every human being has a streak of genius in them, and
Great,
part like no soul is created the same. Les Brown, I heard
great.
this from him. It's like we all are born unique but die as clones. Most people die as clones because they gravitate to the same. It's like, but we're unique. So what's unique? What's the passion? And then how can you double down and triple down on what your unique giftings are? And it's in that area that you open up worlds of opportunity. Okay, so that's not answering the question about how to invest money well, but I would
And and
always
and and I don't
start
want you to
there.
go into how to invest money well. I was asking about how people to learn, and
Okay,
you're
so
definitely giving a great guide to it.
so to tie it together, then it starts there because that's going to expand the making money side and the keeping money side. Okay,
Yep.
in terms of the growing money side, I started really simple. I just started with the 1% rule. You know what? Because I was so busy and focused on the making money side, even though I had some training, but that was years ago. Like it's in my mind, it feels like a lifetime ago. It's like I needed to figure out how to win the game of real estate. And so all I started doing was every single day, I'm going to make sure, and weekly, a bigger time block, I'm going to study this and podcast and learn. But it's no different than like if you've never worked out and you're going to start going to the gym. You start with 15 minutes. So that's what it was for me. Okay. So I would just start a little bit each day. And over time, it's grown because my capacity's grown. So I think that it's so easy. Most people want to just like get to the end goal, but we always have to do, it's like, what are the baby steps? And for me, it's like 15 minutes a day, studying and learning without fail. And then over time, you wake up and you realize, like, oh, like, I'm not in martial arts, but it's just like you start to move up the belts in a way, and you can just do things that are exponentially better than you could do before, but it seems overwhelming before you start.
That is, you're talking about this, and I can just think of a number of things in my own life where I've ran that, that progression or moved the belts. Again, I'm not into martial arts either. I had a long time ago. This was a game changer for me, and when I mean, we're talking over 3 decades ago, and I was struggling as an originator, and I had a sales manager who used to say, his name was Ed Thomas, and he used to say, read 15 minutes a day, read 15 minutes a day, read 15 minutes a day. And I started doing that. And then it became 30 minutes a day. And it became sometimes an hour a day. And to this day, I still read, I'll say just about 15 to 30 minutes every single day. And I'm not talking about, what's going on in the markets. I'm talking about something personal growth, so, personal development, sales, marketing, or what have you. The other thing, though, that you said, and I just want to make sure that this does not get missed by anybody who's listening here or watching, and that is you talked about being passionate. And one of the things as a trainer and a coach to originators and branch managers and some small to mid-sized mortgage company owners is one of the things that I always look for is how passionate are they for their business. And a lot of people have lost their passion. And I hate this word, but they're grinding loans. And you being a Churchill Mortgage, I'm sure you hear people using the word grind. And I always ask the question, I go, when you use the word grind, do you feel better after you use that word? And I've had one person say yes. And they say, because when I hear the word grind, that ignites me. I'm like, okay, cool. You're crazy, but it works. Everybody else is like, no. Then I go, why would you use that word? And I actually did a member session for my Ultimate Originator members months ago where I talked about passion. So I would say for everybody that heard what you said and what I'm saying, you got to ask yourself, how passionate are you about your business? And if you're not getting there in 8, 9, or 10, then you got to ask the second question is, what must I do to become passionate about my business? And that becomes a game changer. Would you agree with that?
I would, and I'll just share personally, like, I love everything about the mortgage business except doing loans, which is kind of funny. Right? It's like I don't like doing loans. I don't. Like the further you get in the process, the more like it's the bitter taste in my mouth. It's just because but that's the beauty of it as well, is there's all of these different aspects of this business. Okay. So in my mind, it's like, okay, you can be a rainmaker, you can be originator, you can be a loan officer, you can be, in the loan officer support, you can be in processing, although there's just the entire spectrum of this process. So I think it's more a matter of, here's the beauty of the loan business is it covers so many things that wherever someone's gifting and passion is, there's a place in this business, highly likely, that you can insert yourself and managed well over time. I mean, and again, that's one the reason this business is the world's best kept secret is because you've got these wild undulations and most people can't like, make the turn a lot of times, right? So they think it's forever or it's done, but it's a cycle. There's a space that when you're in your gift and you're passionate about it, and you can then align and partner with people that love whatever aspect of it is that is a grind to you, that's what the win looks like. So that's my approach. It's a team approach, but I mean, it's kind of funny. I just don't like doing loans, but I love the wealth building side of real estate, and I love the efficiencies and strategies that come with, the debt that accompanies real estate and the bringing in of new business and finding new partners and helping them like having helping realtors see the world and see the potential in a way that they didn't see before, and understand that there's systems they can put in for their business that will massively improve efficiencies and reduce stress. Like that stuff's fulfilling, okay? But filling out a 1003, I'd rather throw up. So, but that's my
Right.
point, is like there's a space in this business for passions. But no, the word grind, I think that I actually am just the opposite. I think that when you're in your gift, life should be almost effortless for you. It's a difference between like soaring versus like wading through mud. And so anything that in my mind is like a grind or wading through mud, here's the beauty of it. There's somebody else that for them, it's soaring, where
Yep.
for me, it's wading through mud. And so that's where we have to find that, and we put those puzzle pieces together.
Uh, I'm laughing because I remember years ago before I had a bookkeeper, and I used to do QuickBooks on my own, totally screwed it up. And I said, all right, I'm going to go take a course on how to use QuickBooks. So I live in northern Westchester, and for 2 days consecutively, I went to an in-depth QuickBooks. This is how you use it. 2 day, 16 hours of QuickBooks training. And I walked out of there, came back to my desk, opened up QuickBooks back home, started doing something. And what I learned in 2 days is that I needed to hire the bookkeeper. It took me 16 hours and whatever I paid for the course, but 16 hours of my life that I'll never get back. I remember nothing from the course, but I did learn in 16 hours that I needed a bookkeeper and that I should never ever try QuickBooks again, except if I want to look at my data on my company. Got two more questions for you. Where this has been going great. I certainly want to respect our audience. The first one is you mentioned this a little bit before we went live on this podcast, and that was about guardrails. So just take a moment to share. When you talk about guardrails, you put it in such a beautiful way that I think it really creates a roadmap or a guide that everybody could follow.
Yeah, that's part of what the core four is for me in the general's tent, is it gives me
Okay.
guardrails for to protect me from me in a sense.
Okay.
I tend to have a fairly addictive driven personality, and where I want to make the reason for this sort of self inflection time once a week and then a little bit daily is to I'd rather course correct in a couple days or a week than drive the wrong direction for 6 months to find out that, like, I was on the wrong road. And I think that that's characteristic of a lot of people that are driven, is you can just drive hard and you're working hard, you're not working smart, you're in a grind instead of, soaring. So, I look for the things in life that are like, there's a big difference between like what's energy positive, energy neutral, and energy negative in life. And so I kind of put things in those three different buckets. It's like, what's energy positive for me, and then how do I orchestrate my day and my week so that the majority of it is energy positive, and the things that are neutral, okay, I'll deal with till I can solve it, and the things that are negative, I, as fast as possible, how do I automate, delegate, or eliminate that from my life. And so that's part of the guardrails, and that's one of the reasons too. I think, like, it's almost like I was telling you before this, like, one of the I did an Ironman. It was a bucket list goal, but
Yes.
when you're doing an Ironman, you can find a pace that you can just go forever. It's like there's a pace that works for you. Okay. And I think that same thing happens in business. And so it's like when you find your pace and others are sprinting and you see, oh, they're going to flame out. There's no way they can hold that pace. Right. Or it's like they're in the wrong sport. It's what is your sport and what is your pace? And then who are the people that, you surround yourself with that actually help you maintain that positivity. I don't know. Those are like little secrets in life, I think, that it sounds so simple when you say it, but when you build it in, it's the difference between a trajectory that's a painful existence, or one that is filled with growth and opportunity and excitement.
I can so share with that, and I'm going to ask you my final question. But I work out with a personal trainer, and it wasn't even too long ago. And we were talking about, and we're just talking about, I was asking him, how much I was lifting, and we were increasing the weights and whatever, whatever. and we talked about a goal or whatever, and he just looks at me and he goes, "Dude, you're 60 years old. You're here at the gym, you're working out." I've had, a number of surgeries. He goes, "Yeah," and he knows my history. He goes, "You had your shoulder replaced a year and a half ago, a full replacement of my shoulder." He goes, "You've got 5 levels of your neck fused, together with metal." He goes, "We're not really bodybuilding here. We're keeping you going." And he goes, "You wanna win this?" And I look at him, I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Then just be consistent. The weight and everything else will take care of itself." And at first I wanted to fight back with him on it, and I probably did. And what I love about him is he doesn't let me get away with anything. And he goes, "Just be consistent. Show up, be consistent, and everything else is gonna take care of itself." And he goes, "And the really cool part is," goes, "you're gonna keep yourself out of injury." And that was the one that I was like, "Okay, cool," because I've had, and those are just 2 surgeries. I have many more that I could talk about that I don't want to. Um, okay, here's your final question.
Okay.
Final question is, you've been interviewed a lot, you've been on podcasts, a lot of people love your wisdom. What's the one thing you've never told anybody on any other podcast that my audience can take as a takeaway to improve their life?
So I would say that the one thing is that, like, a lot of people see me and they think, like, so positive. He's probably it's like he's just wired this way, and it is, something that I'll never have. And it's actually not that at all. Like, I wake up sideways probably half the week mentally, just because of whatever reason, right? It's like the demons that are inside, okay, and I heard this saying one time. It was, I think it was from a Marvel movie, but it's like, we never really truly slay our demons, but we can learn to live above them, was the saying. Okay. Super profound for me. Like, so I've been, for the last about decade, every time I hear something insightful, if it's a movie, a podcast, doesn't matter if I'm driving, I'll pull over and I'll write it down in the notes section of my iPhone to go and then think about it later. But that was one of them. It's like, we don't slay our demons, but we learn to live above them. And so part of it is like, I don't wake up this way every day. Like, I wake up sideways about half the week, and I have to get my mind right every single day. And that's the routine that I go through. And it's not fun sometimes. Like, it's like I'll wake up, it's just like, I am not feeling it. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my workout in. I'm going to spend my time in a little bit of prayer time, meditation time. I'm going to journal for a few minutes. I'm going to do something thoughtful for my wife or my kids or others, whoever comes to mind. I'm going to do my studying, and then all of a sudden, fast forward an hour later, and next thing you know, I'm in a place where I'm ready to get after it. And so that's what I would share. Is it's not These are things that over time, then it becomes unconsciously competent over time, but it takes a while to get to that place. But the whole point is, we have a saying here, which is, do the next right thing. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday. We can't control it, but what we can do is the next right thing, whatever that is. So that would be my
I
parting thought and answer to that.
I I love that. And what I really love is because you actually described me. Because I'm very motivational, and people, love my energy, and I've got great energy just like you and what have you. And I've actually never told anybody that I don't wake up like this every day. So you actually made me just confess. I love the expression that, I wake up sideways. And I guess, yeah, so I can relate to that. And I know that the two of us are not the only one here. So I guess the final takeaway would be is, if you are waking up in any way, shape, not at your best, find the routine that gets you there and do that to start your day. Mike, this was awesome. I am so grateful that you were able to make time for us for for this podcast. And I love your wisdom, and I'm looking forward to staying, connected and engaged with you moving forward. So appreciate your time.
Awesome. Ron, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.